was interesting, I felt like.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of the start of the discussion is, I'll have, let's see, Jared, do you want to, I guess, give us a background on the sexual harassment law? The best, you can read it off of the thing or kind of summarize what you read. I was gonna say, because it's hard to memorize. I didn't memorize that either. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of it was talking about like how if like companies are aware of things that are happening, allowing things to happen, the company can be liable. A lot of sexual harassment seems like it has a lot to do with what individual people can find, or I guess it said the average person or the reasonable person was the word, that was it, finds uncomfortable and inappropriate in the workplace.
Yeah, that's a good definition of sexual harassment. Do you know, do you remember the law behind, I guess, remember that first paragraph under the first document about, just says like law of sexual harassment?
Was it like Title VII? Was that it? I'm pulling it up.
Yeah, talking about Title VII. Do you remember that section by chance?
I don't. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Cassie, do you want to try? I mean, you can look at the document if you want. Just kind of telling us about the law through the federal and state.
Yeah, I don't really remember either. I'm trying to look it up. It was a lot. I should know more because sexual harassment.
Well, it's interesting, even like thinking about, just having this discussion of how much I learned from it too, is like how much in the workplace we don't talk about it, I feel like.
I feel like it's a topic that's kind of like scooted under the rug a little. Like it's too uncomfortable to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, does anyone remember that section, maybe about the legal set of it? Alyssa, I see you.
I think what I got out of it was that, well, it says Title VII does not explicitly mention sexual harassment, but soon after the law was passed, victims began to argue that sexual harassment at work constituted sex discrimination under that same title. So me and my husband got into a discussion about this because he was kind of helping me when I was writing the introduction. We just kind of started talking about it, and I guess I didn't realize that it doesn't explicitly talk about sexual harassment, that it breaks it up in, what was it, two different things, that
categories, I guess.
Yeah. And it doesn't explicitly say sexual harassment in either one.
Yeah, the one thing I thought was cool that they did the guidelines, I guess, with the Title VII, and they kind of outlined what is like the definition of sexual harassment, and kind of, I guess, established some kind of standard for employers and the employer liability as well. So I think that's good, at least, that they're holding, employers liable for sexual harassment that goes on in the workplace. So yeah, with that, that kind of background, Jared, do you want to give us your definition again about on sexual harassment and how they, that law outlined it?
Well, it talks down here. It talks about that early law talks about them being unwelcome sexual advances, but Title VII seems it is all about sexual discrimination in the workplace, and so sexual harassment was kind of brought underneath that also because it can be seen as sexual discrimination. And they say it's a lot of it had to do with the EEOC, which was the agency that is in charge of it. As we read later on, that like when you bring a claim against a company, I think it was just in state court, but you had to file a claim first with the EEOC to be able to carry that forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So it's actually kind of cool, this discussion that they have outlined for us. It kind of, takes the scenario of the Lone Star, Martinez, the lady that, was claiming to be having been sexually harassed by French, her leader. And so it kind of takes, you know, the background of sexual harassment and mixes it all together and gives us some questions to talk about. So, Amber, what, based on that story, the Martina story, do you think her situation constitutes as sexual harassment?
I would say so. I mean, even just from uncomfortable she is around him, but then she, you know, she says like he's actually touched her and, you know, has made comments and stuff, and definitely sexual harassment.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, you know, to not violate any policy. I'm in a role right now where I am working, where I kind of am on like the administrative side, and so I see a lot of things that are going on. And there was just a claim put against a physician, kind of against like sexual harassment, and it was interesting, you know, because it was the same kind of stuff, you know, the talk, you know, the flirtatious but inappropriate flirting, the touching, kind of goofy. Maybe they don't, and I don't know, maybe they don't think it's wrong, but yeah, definitely, I think it does qualify as sexual harassment. Anyone who wants to answer. So we talked about the two different categories of sexual harassment. They have like I think it's quid pro quo, and that's saying, you know, like giving kind of an ultimatum. If you don't do this, then you'll get fired, or then this consequence will happen. The work environment, that's kind of, I think, what we see more often, where it's the inappropriate flirting and touching. So what do you think this situation falls under?
I think the quid pro quo for sure. Yeah, she didn't talk about like, well, she didn't talk about ultimatums though.
Yeah, I think it was a hostile work environment.
Yeah,
in that situation.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't like holding something over her head or telling her she'll get a promotion if she does something. It was just how he was acting to her at work. She just felt trapped that she couldn't share it with anybody. But I don't know. As we can see, he made it miserable for her to be there.
Well, yeah, and just like in the reading I'm seeing, he said in one part that he just wouldn't stop with the comments, that they're so graphic and that it was making her uncomfortable. So I'd say that was hostile.
Yeah, I'd agree with you guys. There's definitely shows that hostile work environment. What do you guys think with the part where, you know, it doesn't really give a ton of information about, you know, like, you know, that ultimatum kind of thing we were talking about, but it does mention that she's afraid of being fired. Do you think that could potentially qualify as that quid pro quo?
I think so. You would have to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I think that quid pro quo suggests that he would have to explicitly suggest that there was something that he was holding over her or something like that. And so maybe since we don't know all the comments that he has said, I think that might be what's difficult to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with the example they. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was thinking just like it's he's not pulling like she's not worried about not sleeping with him and being fired. She's worried that if she tells that he'll fire her. So he's not even threatening her job with any of this inappropriate contact or anything. It is him getting turned in for the inappropriate contact, which would be why she's worried for her job.
Yeah. And unfortunately for her case, and looking at this, you know, not having, because I mean, they say the clearest example they can give is sleep with me or you're fired. I mean, that is very clear, you know, makes it really easy. So hers is kind of foggy and then really not having as much detail. But, you know, one incident of a quid pro quo, you know, could constitute to a legal claim and losing their job. So I think that's just, it's interesting how much, maybe a little bit easier that is to prove, I guess, in some aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that. Okay, so from reading about sexual harassment, do you guys think, or whoever wants to answer, DeCoste, so I don't know how to say his name, DeCoste, I'll just say DeCoste because I'm the guy that overheard the conversation, do you think he got the accurate advice when he called the counsel's office? So
think so.
specifically who he's supposed to contact. From our reading, did you see that
Well,
within there?
Are you supposed to contact the EOC? But I would think at that level, I would feel more comfortable calling HR, right?
Yeah, that's what I would think too. I didn't really know exactly what the EEO office was because it didn't really sound to me that it was HR. But let's see, I'm supposed to report this.
Reading on page 4 about the law, it says that a victim of sexual harassment has several possible venues in which to pursue a claim. Those wishing to lodge a hostile environment claim under Title VII should first pursue corrective action with their employer.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting that she didn't even allow them, to do that at all. It was like, you have to contact the EEO office. But more specifically, this kind of talks about if you want to go and pulling that up, if you want to take, I think, more federal action, you need to contact the federal EEOC, and that's who you're supposed to contact. So I don't know why they wanted us to point that out, that maybe the direction that she gave wasn't the best direction. And like, Jared said, talking to the employer, and trying to fix that action through the employer, would probably have been the first step internally. Any other thoughts on that?
I think the lawyer made a good point when she was talking about, if you go to trial and you're put under oath and you're asked if you knew anything, you're gonna have to say yes, even though it's just like overhearing. And so then, if they didn't do anything, it's gonna look bad on them that they didn't do anything about that.
Yeah, totally. I agree. And that was like kind of the next follow-up, about the lawyer. Why was she being so persistent and, insisting that he, kind of start the investigating process. And so, I think so too, him having to stand as a witness and say, oh, I didn't say anything if it went farther. What else do you guys think? Why do you think she maybe was insistent on him turning in French?
Why was she so persistent? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Well, the company can be held liable for it. So if they know about it and turn a blind eye to it and she files a claim, and it can come back on the company as well.
Yeah, that's true. Especially if they knew, in talking to lawyers.
Well, even by him telling her, and now she knows.
Yeah, exactly.
She has to do something about it too, not just him. She has to make sure that it was followed through with.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Any other thoughts about, I guess that part of the sexual harassment background or reasons why maybe the lawyer thought that he should turn him in? Good. So Cassie, I'll ask you this. How would you evaluate DaCosta, his opinion at this point? So what do you think he should do? Should he turn French in? Should he call the EEO? Should he keep, Martinez secret?
I don't know. If I was in his position, I would turn him in because I wouldn't want the company to be held liable for any action that went forth after that. So I would turn him in just because that would help everyone else see that it wasn't the company's fault, but it was his, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
We're seeing this very prominently in the news this second with Harvey Weinstein.
Explain further on that. I didn't know about that.
Harvey Weinstein, he's a movie producer, and he's a very famous movie producer with a lot of connections. And New York Times within last week ran this giant expose about him making sexual advances to a lot of different actresses over the years. And it's he's already been fired by his company, and he's won several Oscars as a producer. He's that big, and now it's getting roped in all these other actors, especially Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, who all these women are saying they knew about what was going on and they didn't do anything about it. So it's, just from that standpoint, something that this other person did that they just knew about, even if they weren't uh, implicated in any way, they're becoming roped into this also for not having done anything. So I think that DeCoste can very easily find himself in a similar situation if on a much smaller scale.
Yeah, totally. So, Amber, what do you think? Kind of getting a quick vote from everybody, what their opinion is.
They should turn him in just because, like they said, they don't want the company to be liable. And what's her name, Julia?
Yeah,
Don't want people to find out. She's worried about her husband getting mad, and Sand is, she says like, "Oh, he'll just fire me." They cost like over him. Like, shouldn't he have control of like, no, you can't fire her, or?
I think they're just coworkers, right? He's not his boss.
Okay.
No, I thought he is the boss, to my understanding, but maybe
he is.
I think that makes it the harder part because he's in.
I think DeCoste and French are peers, and
yes,
but she's French's direct report.
Okay.
Like a secretary or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, kind of what it sounded like to me.
Okay, that makes a little more sense now.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess then that, makes sense why it's so difficult, because he is the kind of boss and he could fire her.
Mm-hmm.
And if she needs a job, then that would be hard. Alyssa, are you kind of in the same opinion, or what's your thought?
I'm just kind of thinking here. I think this kind of goes back to us in the church, how, like even policies in the church, if we know, let's say we know of, I don't know, like the elders quorum president is doing something wrong, we're still supposed to report it. We can't just not say anything. I mean, I guess we could, but I don't know. I'm just looking at it as if, well, I wouldn't, if it were me and I were him, I wouldn't want to even know about it. I wouldn't want to be in the middle of it. So the quickest way to wash my hands of that would be to tell. I wouldn't want to keep her secret. Like, she asked him to not say anything and let her deal with it, and they're supposed to get back together and talk. But for me, like, I wouldn't even want to get in the middle of that. I wouldn't want her to come back and talk to me about it. That's just a sticky situation. I would report it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want her to be in the middle of that.
Yeah, I agree. That would be a hard situation to be in. We see it in the church all the time where there's things going on that maybe aren't the best. And I agree with you, not wanting to be in the middle, but then also not wanting them to be doing bad things and, not telling.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So if they were to say something, so, we've all just kind of decided we're going to say something. If they say she won't get fired because retaliation is illegal, and we've seen that, with the sexual harassment laws, what proof does she actually have of harassment, though? So she's coming forward, but she doesn't actually, what proof does she have, I guess?
That's rough. I don't think it really talks about proof.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's her word against him.
Yeah, it says stuff about the comments, but it doesn't say that she has actual proof of it.
Which, I mean, not to say that he's smart in the way that he is being, a perpetrator, but like, I mean, that is, not having any trail, makes it harder for him to get caught.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that makes it harder too, for Martinez to come forward, because she really doesn't have the proof.
Mm-hmm.
So does
I wonder how many times that's how it always comes down to in harassment cases.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
it is. Yeah, it's sad that it is that way, and what policies can be put in place where it doesn't have to be that way. You don't want video recorders everywhere, but like, I don't know, it's a hard thing. So does anything prevent her boss from firing her for some other reason? You guys remember from the sexual harassment laws or anything that prevents her boss from firing her for some other reason?
Is this one of those instances in which, if she brings this up to him, that he has to show that he had a legitimate other reason for letting her go?
Yeah, I think this is the kind of case, they can't say, oh, you're lazy, and then not have, that proof that she actually is lazy. So finding something legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
Then you don't want to, work on walk around your workplace walking on eggshells, and it's just a hard situation. I'm trying to think of putting myself in her shoes, and I would almost probably be like not wanting to say anything because of that situation. I mean, just wanting to get transferred and not have to worry about, how French is going to react. Mm-hmm. Do you guys remember anything from this sexual harassment? I kind of talked about this a little bit, but that anything about filing a harassment claim against a coworker or even like a leader, someone that's above you, does that prevent her from like ever being fired?
Well, I mean, it can't, because that would be that's also unreasonable.
Right.
I mean, that turns it into almost still a quid pro quo thing, because then as long as you allow this to happen, then you won't be fired.
Yeah, exactly. So this discussion kind of, it tells that to do a role play, but I'm not going to do a role play, but because either you served a mission and you did a ton of role plays, or we could do it without doing a role play. So how would I do Alyssa and Jared? How about this? So it says to pick two students. So one's a lawyer and one's DeCoste, whatever. DeCoste, whatever. So what do you think, what specifically would you report? So I guess each of you guys could kind of just express what you would report. If you were DeCoste, what would you report? Go first, or Jared can go first, whoever wants to go first.
So if I was DeCoste, what would I report?
Yeah, because all you had was overheard, Julia's conversation. That's it.
I would just report that. Listen, like I overheard a conversation. Just simply what I heard, the truth.
Yeah, simple. So hard not to say. What about you, Jared?
I would express that I heard this very much like overheard it. I think that's necessary, so that if you get the facts wrong, it's not coming back on you. Well, you said this. But I would, like Alyssa said, I would tell the truth, but I would absolutely put that caveat in there. This is something I overheard at work, so it may be incorrect. Because the whole thing, as far as I could tell, she never said French. She never said the guy's name.
Yep, she never said his name. That's what it kind of points out. He doesn't even know. I mean, he assumes that's him.
Yeah, because like she says he's my boss, and that could mean either French or it could mean the person above French, or something like that. So he doesn't know.
He could have a second job, and it could be your other boss.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It could be, so you have to be real careful about that.
Yeah, that's true. Completely outlining and making sure they know that you only overheard the conversation, you haven't seen anything, and you haven't even heard the name. You just assume.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, cool. So now this next part, we have fun activities in this discussion.
Yay.
So this next part, we're each going to have a role. Well, there's only 4, so I'll be part of one of the roles as well. But so I'll start from Alyssa. So what we're going to do is we're going to identify the most important things that you, as who you are, want to see in a new policy and procedures that we're going to formulate, so that these issues don't take place. And if they do arise, what are we going to do about it? Does it make sense? So what's the most important thing you want to see in a new policy or procedure that our organization is going to implement for sexual harassment issues? You'll be the potential victim of harassment. Sorry, Amber, you're the accused harasser. Cassie is the bystander.
Sweet.
And Jared's the legal counsel.
Okay.
And we're not talking about this company in particular because we don't know what their policy is. We're just saying, here's what we want to have in the policy.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that what you want to include, what's most important according to your point of view right now as the person that you're kind of playing.
So as a potential victim, I think that in the policy you need to have like channels where you can report it, maybe even anonymously at first. I know when things like this happen, it's probably got to be embarrassing and you don't want people to know. And I think there needs to be some sort of like anonymous type of reporting initially. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree, because I think a lot of victims, they are embarrassed by it. It's hard. They don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but they also don't want to, lose their job. So having it anonymous while they maybe are doing investigations,
And I think
would be a
going
good
along with
policy to
that,
implement.
going along with the laws, I just think that having some sort of statement in the policy saying that there won't be any retaliation for reporting anything.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, Amber, as the accused harasser, what kind of policy would you want implemented or procedure?
I'm not sure like specifically, but there needs to be something that would like protect me in case I'm innocent, if someone's just accusing me and I didn't actually harass them.
Yeah.
So something that they have to have like proof. But I mean, I don't know how to.
Yeah, that is having something, but because you might be innocent. Someone might be crying wolf, and it, you might be innocent. What does anyone else have any thoughts of what you could implement? Cassie, nope.
I know, like
bystander.
my husband works for a union, and they have union stewards who you can go to with an issue, and they can kind of be your lawyer, so to speak. So maybe just kind of going along those lines, if you've been accused of something, maybe having someone within the company that's like a mediator or someone that can kind of help on your behalf.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They might, you have to protect the potential innocent as well. So I think that would be a good idea, I don't know. That is a hard one having, I don't know, anyone else have any thoughts? What they could implement? And it could be even something like, you don't want to say you have to have solid proof to fire them, but, do we want to do a zero policy? Do you want to do, a warning or have it work, your employer kind of speak to you about it and mediate it, just like Alyssa was saying before it, got out of hand even more. And then if it continued to happen, that could be something too.
What if you were accused, whether you're innocent or not, if you're accused because it could help, it could hurt the integrity of the company if you that got out in the news, depending on how big the company is or whatever. Could you maybe suspend them with pay, and that's kind of like part of the policy, something that you have to do until you can find out if there's any truth to it.
No, that's a good idea. Just so it doesn't, like you said, hurt the integrity, because they're going to say, okay, what was the punishment, or what did they do for this person that potentially, like sexually harassed somebody? So yeah, that's a good thought too.
Unfortunately,
all right, Cassie, we're on you.
Oh, I was going to say, unfortunately, people that are accused of stuff like this, like, it just can forever hurt their, what word am I thinking of? Like, their integrity, their reputation. Yeah, like, unfortunately, regardless if they're innocent or not, it's going to hurt their reputation.
I know, and I mean,
Yeah.
think about especially those that are accused that are innocent. Their families, are going to hear about it and question it, and every employer after if they lose their job, and
You have people take sides.
yeah,
And
people take sides. Yeah, it's a hard. Yeah, that's why I think having that professionalism like in workplace and trying really hard to have that disconnect kind of from the people you work with, but close enough to actually be able to get work done is important. So that if you were to be accused, I don't know, it'd be obvious to everyone else that you aren't that way. I don't know.
I mean, going back to how it is in the church too, we're supposed to, like, priesthood holders are not supposed to be alone in a room with another woman and vice versa. And just maybe for yourself, just if you're, the person in authority over someone else, maybe always try to have someone else around if you can. Would help
Yeah.
eliminate some of those accusations.
That's a good idea. Or implementing, I know for primary they've put, and I think in all classes now they have those little windows, and like you said, they have a primary, a husband and a wife, or at least two females, two males, two people to kind of be able to be there just in case, so that nothing happens basically. So maybe having that window could help, at least if they're, having them alone, if they have to be alone. Okay, Cassie, sorry. On to you, the bystander.
No, you're fine.
It's important for you.
Policy. As a bystander, I don't know. Like maybe like a strike system. I don't like if they hear it once, like the manager talks to them, and then the next time it goes into a more serious action, that they know it's not just like a small matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can you further explain that for me? Just so are you talking for the bystander?
Yeah. So like if you hear something, like, and you tell them, like the manager will go to the harasser and talk to them, and then if it gets worse, further precaution.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Because I don't want to say like firing, but yeah.
Do you think implementing just kind of like what the lawyer said at Lone Star, you have to call the EEO, and do you think that would be an important policy so that they have to come forward? Or
yeah, I think that'd be good.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other thoughts about the bystander? What kind of policies or procedures that we could have in place for them? Because I feel like that's the scariest position to be in. At least for me, other than obviously the person that's a potential victim, but not wanting to be in the middle and maybe not wanting to rat someone out or not get yourself more in the middle. I would be scared too, if someone, that your boss is the one that's getting accused, and I'd be scared of potentially getting fired myself. So it's a hard position to be in. All right, Jared, what about you? Legal counsel.
I think an important thing to have is a guideline set in stone about what to do in each kind of situation, whether it is coworkers, like one coworker sexually harassing another coworker, or in this case, a manager sexually harassing somebody underneath them. So they need to have like a inset or set in stone, like basically policy about what the next step is to take, and just where to go as soon as they receive a report about it.
Yeah, I like that, especially because I think even like I'm sure one of us has mentioned it in our doohickey, but having a training on what if this is happening, if this is happening to you, what do you do? Just like you said, Jared. And then if you overhear it, having the training so people know that when it happens, don't shut down, I guess.
Yeah, because so many people that are in the situation that she was in, they're not going to want to, that to get out because they're going to be super embarrassed about it. But there needs to be policies in place for people like DeCoste who overhears it. She's in a situation where somebody in power is doing this to her, and so the company needs to be able to do something to help protect her at this point. even if she's not really capable of seeing that she needs that. So
Yeah.
having that training so everyone knows exactly what to do in that situation would be really important.
Yeah, I completely agree. So now they want us to take a few minutes and actually create a policy. So we've kind of come up with little ideas. So we could just, name maybe 1 or 3 to 4 kind of policies that we would adopt or put into place. Sexual harassment policies and procedures that would take place. So we could use Lone Star as our example of our company. So what would be, what would be one policy that we want? So a procedure, like you were saying, Jared, I think, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that maybe?
Maybe make it compulsory for somebody in DeCost's position, if you overhear something, that he does have to go share it with with an HR representative, so that even if somebody's asking not to, that he really doesn't have a choice in it. This is to protect, himself, the employee, the company, everybody involved. So just having a policy where if you overhear something, find out about something, that's compulsory to go report it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I like that. And I like that it's in, it's in HR. It's not, some scary calling federal EEOC, like, you're going within your company and talking to HR. Most of the time, HR is within the company, depending on how big it is, I guess. But what about you, Amber? What would you think?
I would probably say about the same thing. Maybe, it just needs to be like clearly stated out, like what constitutes sexual harassment, and like it is not okay. That's obvious, but it's important to have it like spelled out. And
yeah, I like that, having a company's definition of what is sexual harassment, so that hopefully people won't be trying to walk on the line, but so that people know, okay, this is the line, don't cross this line. Yeah, I like that. And I think maybe even having, the management, hopefully they're not ones that are doing the sexual harassment, but having an open door policy, they're always, if you hear something in the office, they want you to come forward and be able to express, what you heard, maybe you saw, and having that kind of trust in that open door policy, I think would be a good thing to implement as well. Alyssa, what do you think? What kind of policy or procedure would you want to put in place?
I was kind of thinking when Jared was talking, so I don't know if he actually mentioned this, but I just think overall, just having procedure for every maybe new employee that comes in, you have to go through this training. Like it's a requirement of any job to go through the training to learn what it is and how to address it and who to contact and all that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Having that training, I think will help a lot with, people. I don't know. I think of past jobs that I've had, and I don't think I've had any training on their sexual harassment policies and procedures. And that's kind of scary. I don't know that.
Yeah, I've never had any.
Have you ever had a training on it? You just said no?
Yeah, I've never had any.
Yeah. Slightly. It's interesting. I think it's, like Jared was saying, it's happening a lot more. And I think it's happened a lot. I think it's just finally becoming maybe a little bit more public that this is happening in the workplace and it needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
So for the Lone Star wrap up, I don't know if anyone read through this or read anything about it, but it talks about the outcome and what happened.
Okay.
So unfortunately for, So unfortunately for DeCoste or whatever, he forgot about caller ID. And so actually the lawyer
I thought about that.
You thought about that?
Yeah, I
I
can tell where that's coming from. It's an internal call.
Yeah, exactly. So the lawyer used that information, and then she actually ended up figuring out the people that he was talking about it. And so she went ahead and reported it to Lone Star EEO. And so they actually, then they investigated and started, a formal investigation. And Martinez didn't want to cooperate, and so they, really tried to get her to cooperate, but she didn't want to. French, of course, denied all the charges, and he actually claimed that Martinez made it all up, because we were reading how people were going to lose their jobs, they were going to be layoffs, and so she made it up to protect herself from being laid off. DeCoste was asked about the little evidence that he actually heard, or to see if I guess he was asked for proof or evidence, and he didn't have any, obviously. And so then Martinez's husband ended up finding out. He beat her up, which is sad, and then he forced her to quit.
Wow.
This is like the part that makes me sad. But French actually, survived the investigation. Nothing happened to him. He only had a bruised reputation. He blamed everything on DeCoste for calling the corporate council to figure out, what he should do. And so then there was so much animosity and hate between them that DeCoste actually ended up leaving the company 3 months later. So what do you think Lone Star's sexual harassment policy from that, that outcome? What do you, if they even had one, what do you think it was, or do you think they didn't even have one?
I think they possibly could have had one, but just like, we just said that we've never gone through any sort of training. I think companies, most of them probably have some sort of policy, I would think.
Yeah.
It just didn't communicate it.
Yeah.
I mean, there clearly was a policy because the person that DeCoste reported it to knew that where she was supposed to go with it. So.
Well, it's interesting because I just think about DeCoste, calling, he seems like, he's an engineer, so he seems like he was a little bit at least more informed, or maybe in leadership. I'm not really sure, but he didn't even know. He was like, okay, what do I do from here? I don't really know. So, yeah. What do you think, what policies and procedures, that they could implement might, or, if we could implement any, might improve the situation that DeCoste found himself in?
Maybe just knowing what the policies and procedures were.
Right. Or even with the bystander helping, what does a bystander have to do? Because, he ended up having to leave his job, and that's sad. And he didn't even, wasn't really even a part of it at all, so, it's sad. I actually was just thinking about my father-in-law. I forgot about this situation, but a coworker was being sexually harassed, and he was a CFO for the company at this time, and he reported it to the owners, and they end up firing her and and him, and he ended up losing his job. And I think they made up some excuse of why they were firing him, but they're still in court cases on it now, wanting to get his money back from losing his job and not having any what's the word I'm looking for? I guess restitution. Yeah. He lost, a lot of money from just being laid off, or losing his job like that. So, having that policy of not being able to fire somebody, I think is important as well. So for the last question, we've already answered this. I think, obviously we know that if a policy would have been created, when we talked about it, we think it would have been helpful for Jack, because if it clearly outlined what he was supposed to do, that would have been helpful. And then, having a clear policies and procedures, like we've already talked about, I think would have, what do you guys think? Do you think having clear policies and procedures would have helped to avoid any of the final consequences of this case?
I think it probably could have had similar outcome. I think if DeCoste would have been better informed about what he should have done as a bystander, then maybe the outcome could have been a little bit different for him. But I think Martinez would have probably handled it the same no matter what, and I think French would have handled it the same no matter what.
Yeah. What does everyone else think?
I think it would have been better. Oh, sorry, Jared, you go.
I was just going to say, I think it could have turned out, I don't know, maybe a little bit better, just because he wouldn't have called the in-house counsel who would have just used caller ID to trace it right back to him immediately.
Right.
But it really felt like, I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. Like, he did what he should have done. He did the right thing. And I don't know, stuff still sucks even when you do the right thing.
I know, that's what stinks about it all. What about you, Amber? Do you have any? Oh, wait, Cassie, you were saying something. What were you thinking?
Oh, I just think it would have been better just because then they all would have known the clear guidelines of what not to cross, and
Yeah, that's true. And maybe if there was a policy that was more clear, then Martinez would, I don't know, maybe have used that policy and actually did something. But I think I'm with you, Alyssa. I don't know if she actually would have done anything. I think she would just have tried to transfer and sweep it under a rug and not even worry about it anymore. Yeah. So that's it for the discussion. I have to ask, this is the final wrap-up, questions and feedback. So from each of you, what do you think is the most important thing you learned from this case? And we can start with Jared if you want.
Well, after hearing the how it ended, just I don't know, stay very knowledgeable about your company's policies and procedures.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important. What about you, Cassie?
Just to have open communication. I feel like that makes the company run a lot more smooth, and it makes you feel more comfortable in the workplace.
Yeah. How about you, Amber?
About the same as Jared, that you need to have clear policy, knowledgeable about them, but then actually follow them, because it's possible that they, had, but they just weren't following them. So.
No, that's true. Making sure that they're actually being followed and implemented. Ah, that's smart. How about you, Alyssa?
Mine would be the same, just being educated. Just not even being educated on the company's policies, but I mean, we should be educated on these laws anyway. They're laws for us to keep, everything in line. And I think just being educated on the laws themselves is important.
I agree. I think from just having this discussion, from doing the reading, when I go into future jobs, knowing the sexual harassment policies and procedures, I think will be something that's on my radar, along with other policies. But I'm grateful for this class to kind of make me aware of it, because I think a lot of people just don't think about it until it happens to them. Okay, so then lastly, I'll just combine the last two together. So each team member rate the overall quality of today's conversation from 0 to 10. It's kind of awkward, sorry. And then, but we all were part of the discussion, so it's okay. And then what
you did well.
What I do well. And I think for all future discussion leaders, what can we do better next time, and what have you liked from discussion leaders? So yeah, we'll start with you, Alyssa, and we'll go back over.
I'm gonna give you a big fat 10.
Nice.
Hold my sign. Let's see. I think, and I've just noticed, even just with you and all these conversations, you're pretty on point. You keep things in control, and you know when to wrap up and move on.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks. Okay, Amber, how about you?
Did you say Amber?
Yes.
Probably 10. I don't know. I mean, every discussion leader that we've had so far has come very prepared. That's what I've been thinking. Well, I'm discussion leader, I want to take some extra time. So we're talking about in discussion well, and yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important as a discussion leader to come prepared, and it's nice that they have, kind of an outline discussion, that helps you kind of, when you're reading, kind of base it around that too and understand more in detail. So sweet. Thanks. Cassie?
10. I like how I like how you have everyone involved and you let people share their thoughts. And coming prepared, that's a good one too. So
sweet. Thanks. And then how about you, Jared?
We're going to have to go with a 0 just to balance out all the 10s.
I know, that's what I was thinking. I need a 0 in here.
No,
humble me.
I'll say a 10 also. I think they do a really good job of, like giving us for for a couple of those, you gave us questions in advance so that we had time to think about and formulate our answers instead of just try and come up with one off the top of the dome or something like that. So I think that was really good.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Sorry. I mean, it's cool that, I mean, these are the things that we have to do in the, you know, in companies and in the workplace, giving people feedback. So thanks for giving it to me. Not many of you gave negative, well, no one I don't think said anything that I could do better, but if you have something and you don't want to say it out loud, you can text it to me.
Okay.
But I really appreciate you guys doing this, the doohickey part, and for your participation. It was awesome. And it looks like great work, and I'll let you know if I have any questions for anyone on their problems and solutions.
I'm just going to say this is probably one of the better groups I've been in.
Seriously, I know. Great job, guys. I'm thankful.
Yeah.
Great job, guys.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you guys a heads up. I'm not going to be able to make it to the meeting next week, and I apologize about
Jared,
that.
you're not allowed to do that. Sorry.
I know. I'm sorry.
Just kidding.
I won't be at the one no, I can't remember. The last week of the month, I think. I'm going on a
You know what?
cruise.
I'm not going to be at the one after you either. I'm just kidding.
Amber, when are we going to be gone?
I know.
I'll just be here forever.
I know. It's nice having everyone. So we will miss you, Jared, next week. And obviously,
Yeah.
Alyssa, your last week of October when you're not here. But next week, we don't have anything that we need to come prepared for, do we?
No, I think it's like the first. It's like the first unit for our next doohickey. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can't start again.
No, we're
Okay.
good.
Thanks, guys.
I'll put those new spreadsheets back at with like so we can punch in new information and if anybody wants to get started on anything.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for doing that. That helps a lot. I like the spreadsheets and the Google Doc.
All right. Do we need to discuss anything with the doohickey, or are we just pretty much good to go?
Yeah, I think I've talked to everyone about someone's changing something and someone's adding the references. Other than that, I think it should be good. I'll print it off and edit it, and I'm
Okay.
still
I'll
old
get
school.
the
I like to print it off.
conclusion out there. I may not get to work on it until morning because it's late here right now.
Honestly, you can work on it tomorrow night. That's fine. I have to read the top parts anyway, so don't even worry about it. I'm glad we got the bulk in here. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Good
Have a
night.
good night.
I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Yeah.